Good afternoon and welcome to Finding the Joy in the Journey. My name is Gina and I am blessed to be in service on this network. I am a practitioner that is part of this prayer team as well as the spiritual director of CSL Greater Boston. And I am also the host of the Peace Circle on Monday nights. But finding the joy in the journey is just that. Every week we talk about different ways to experience more joy. It's not something that we have to create, it's already there. It's simply allowing it, recognizing it, and living in it in a different way. As we go up the side of this mountain called life, there's beauty all around us, not just at the destination. So it is knowing and being in that place of appreciation, present in the presence right where we are, and finding the joy in this day. Unfortunately, we live in a life, an environment, and society. It's all about bigger, better, faster, more. But that doesn't fulfill, it just fills our schedule. So we are here to talk about a fulfilling life. What does that mean? What does that look like? And today I have a wonderful guest that I am so grateful to have here. This is someone that I love and appreciate and have my entire 3 years that I've been in ministerial school. It's actually School of Spiritual Leadership for the Florida campus that I have been just loved her from the moment the first class was. Reverend Dr. Toni LaMotta is a best-selling author, and she has got so many wonderful topics that she is so incredible at. She's also just became actually an instructor and an adjunct professor at Herzing University as well, as she's had her own communities. She has done so much for CSL and in general, and I am blessed to have her here. And today, as we bring you in, welcome, Reverend Dr. Toni LaMotta. Welcome.
Hi, Gina.
And it is a gift to be here. And we're going to talk today about your new course that is starting next week. And I am very, very excited about it. So I am going to let you just say hello to everyone. And I want you to just give us just an overview in general. Tell us a little bit about it.
About the course. Okay. And
How
the,
about you even? Start
oh,
with that.
about me. Okay. I guess one of the major things I like to say is that I love to learn. I'm constantly learning. And the more that I teach, the more I get to learn. I never teach the same course the same way. I'm always changing it and adding to it. And I've been working on conscious aging for, maybe the last 10 years. And I thought I read every book on this topic, but I keep finding there are new books out there as well. And I've been offering seminars. I have an online seminar, and this is the first time I'm actually offering one on Zoom. And what we're doing is taking a look at, first of all, we start out with like what people are afraid of, and we get rid of those fears so we can talk about really aging consciously. And then we do a little bit of a life review and say, what brought me to where I am now and who do I want to be going forward? We then look at what is the spirituality that actually can happen as we go through the aging process so that we can actually like really accept the process rather than fight against it. And finally, because we're still breathing, there's more for us to do. So we look at what's our future, and whether it's 2 more years or 20 more years or 100 more years, we all have a future. So we're looking at all of those things. I love to talk about this topic. I love working with it, and I hope some of you will consider joining us.
Absolutely. And actually, you've had this topic and it's always been online and for available for people. And my Boston community fell in love. You were just as I did. You spoke at our center. You blessed us with that one Sunday, and they were so excited about the thought of this. and immediately we set up a date. So I am so excited, and I know my group is so excited to get started with this topic that needs to be embraced. Embracing the aging process is actually, and I love the title in itself, because when we look at, this is actually a flyer from it, and I put that up there because you know you literally, your landing page goes right to this right now, which makes it nice and easy. Conscious Aging Connection. And it also has your book, Embracing the Aging Process, that it wraps around. And your website, it all has the dragonfly, which I love the dragonfly. So I'd love to start and just know, you know and just so people know, I'm going to put this up here throughout the whole thing. They can reach out to you and ask questions through that, or you can, or they, whatever it may be, they can find you on your website or register for the class right on that landing page. So I will put it up throughout the entire time. But I would definitely want to ask you, and Charlene is here, and thank you, Charlene. She is the best, isn't she? Absolutely. And conscious aging, she's loving it. Absolutely. And Wayne is here with us as well. Welcome. Great to have you. And we are live. So please ask us whatever questions you may have. So tell me about the dragonfly.
Dragonfly. Well, actually, I'm sitting in my office right now, and there's a wall in front of me of all the gifts people have been giving me over the years of dragonflies. And the reason I use the dragonfly, and many people don't know this, the dragonfly doesn't get its true colors until it reaches maturity.
Mm.
And those of us who are over 60, I'd say, and or even coming up to that, really know that, at this age, we finally say, I am who I am. And we become more and more of ourselves. And so our true colors can come out so much more clearly when we're not worried about like struggling to make a living, or we're not worrying about what everybody thinks of us. The dragonfly represents, actually, it represents transformation even more than the butterfly, because it came from the mud and it transforms completely. So it has that double-edged meaning, transformation and flowing with our true colors. Love it.
I love it as well, because I love the butterfly. That's the one I have all over my house. So I definitely, I can, and it's so true that when we're young, we think we need to fit a mold, and it's like we're chasing our tail to get there, and we're
Mhm.
doing it wrong. It's like there should have been a script somewhere that showed me how I was supposed to get to this treasure hunt, this map of where the destination. And as we get older and become more confident within ourselves, we realize it's not about getting anywhere. It's about becoming who it is and doing what we choose. And that is a gift if we allow ourselves to have it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, how do you define conscious aging? And I love that term. I think it is so important that you know, there are so many gifts at every age. And, as the riper the fruit, the sweeter it is.
Well, because the later stage of life has really unique potential for growth. I mean, if you study some of the work of Carl Jung, he talks about the second stage, or you talk about many of these people looking at it. I don't get older, I level up. I love that. That's great, Wayne. And that's true. If you're reading the media, it's all about decay and disease, and we're going downhill, and things are rough. But for those who recognize there is a spiritual presence behind everything, we're really looking at, we become more alive, more awake, more deliberate, and we're really taking active responsibility for our destiny. And so doing it consciously helps us to recognize that we have tremendous power. I mean, we all know that, or we think we know that. We suddenly live it so much more fully as we age.
I love the term for me, and it's a mantra for me, is the rest of my life is the best of my life.
Mhm.
Like, I am excited about what's next. And of course, well, I'm also just finishing up a marriage ministerial school. So it's a whole different path. But it wasn't one I never planned to take. And I realize, I still feel young. I am young. I have no, question about that. And at the same time, I see my kids and I think, where did the time go? It happens so fast. So wherever you are, if you happen to just land on this page and you're thinking, well, I'm in my 20s or I'm in my 30s and I don't have to worry about that right now. It's not about worrying about anything. It's about embracing it in a greater way because we're realizing the gift of it.
We're all aging no matter how old we are.
That's the gift of it too, is that we get to do it. My perspective on aging changed with when my sister transitioned. She was 37 years old, and it was a shock, needless to say. But every day after 37, I've realized I get to be here. I
Mhm.
am living my life on purpose because I get to be here. Where before that, it seemed like a given. Today I realize there is no given. I need to do it's like hit the ground running. I've got a lot to do. And it's living the best life today. It's not waiting for someday. Well, when I have, I call that destination happiness. When I have the right job, when I have the right mate, when I've lost weight, when I've done all of these things, then I'll be happy. No, it's not about then. It's about right here and right now. It's embracing life. That's why I love this topic so much. So how is it that we do that? How do we go about aging consciously? And where do we, how do we do that more
So,
fully?
one of the very first things we need to do is shut out the messages that say 50 is the new 40, or all of the messages about anti aging. That's when I started doing this work. Actually, when I started looking at TV and realizing everybody was anti aging. I don't want to be anti anything, especially not aging, because it's like anti what I'm going through. So, knowing consciousness is about fully accepting what is. And the key is not comparing it or wishing it were different. Like one of the major problems people have with aging is I can no longer, or I'm no longer doing. I was listening to a wonderful podcast the other day on decluttering. And I'm not a clutterer, but I thought it was really interesting as she said, every single thing in your home, you should pick up and say, is this who I am and who I want to be? Rather than this is who I was and I have to hold on to it. And that's the first step in conscious aging, is to look at who I am now and who I want to be, and like let go of I only wish I could. And one of the things we do in the class is look at some of those things. For example, I used to be, don't know this about me, Gina. I was a ballroom dancer. I love to dance. And my body is such these days that that's challenging. However, I have taken it on as a whole new meaning. I actually bought a statue of two dancers and it sits on my altar. And I sing the song and dance with my beloved, who is the divine. So it becomes a whole new way of dancing. And dancing has become a metaphor for me that is so much richer than actually being out in the streets just ballroom dancing, And it's like, rather than saying, I can no longer, look at what I can do and how do I twist those around. So,
I think we know that everything begins in our mind. And the story that we tell ourselves is what actually we are creating. So we know that that's the premise of everything that we study. And at the same time, a lot of those things, they don't come from our conscious decisions. So where do you think that we've gotten all of this? Like, how do you, when you look at people's ideas about, how do we How do we change that?
Well, I just said, well, the media. I mean, you can't pick up a magazine or look at a TV without somebody talking about aging or without people looking, it's better to look younger. So one of the things is to shut those things off and to really know that there is another message that we can be giving ourselves. And we do need to just give them to ourselves because the world is not changing around us. It's getting more ageist as we go along, is what I'm finding. And so rather than like wait for someone outside myself to tell me, I know it from within. People have myths about aging. That's the other thing you can do is start learning what the lies are out
Mm,
there. And one of the things that you'll see out there is that your brain declines. You got to be worried about Alzheimer's. That's a big thing. And it's like, you know, the truth is that there are studies that show our verbal and math abilities and spatial and abstract reasoning actually improve from middle age on. Interesting. You don't read that in the press very
you
often.
don't.
And the other thing is that some of the myths that, we and there are studies done by two women from Harvard who teach that, you know, just what we know in our science of mind teaching, it's what we expect as what happens. So people have those problems because they're expecting them to happen. Amazing. They do some amazing studies on it. So there are myths that we can debunk, and we do spend some time. The first week of class is about debunking some of those myths that we all believe. And I think one of the ways of getting rid of false beliefs is by hearing the truth. And when we do hear the truth, it's like even if you know one case where it's not true, where it's not true, it debunks that false belief. And so we change that.
Charlene says she agrees. I feel brighter and smarter now versus my 20s. Very much so, honestly.
Well, I thought
Because
I was smarter in my 20s, but but just the kind of fun thing that we think we know so much, but you know,
the more that I know, the more that I grow and know, the less I realize I really do know.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and the less that I need to prove it. That's the other gift that I think comes with. It's not about coming with age, it's experience. And as, we go through life, we realize that I don't have anything to prove outside of me. And what I love the term to me, what other people think of me is none of my business. So I can be comfortable. The whole thing is there is no joy if we're not comfortable in our own skin. And that's why this on this, show, that's what's so important. Joy comes from inside. There's nothing out there that's going to make me feel better. It's just a distraction. So it's being who I'm authentically meant to be and connecting with that joy means I have to appreciate the vessel I'm in. There is no peace until I'm at peace with my peace. We each have a different puzzle piece. This body is our own unique puzzle piece that fits in the mosaic of life. And it's not supposed to look or be shaped like anybody else's. And, it does sometimes change as time goes on. And that's okay too, because we're not what we look like. There's so many layers to it. It is so important. And you were talking right from the beginning. You had mentioned your a life review process. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Life review, I do a technique called the intensive journal process, and I actually have an entire class on that topic as well, where it's very different from what people think of as journaling. Most people like are afraid to journal. There are either people who love it or people who I don't want to write. But journaling about what's happening during the day or even your insights is not what this is about. This is an opportunity to literally look at what your life wants to become. And you look at the things that have happened in your life from many different perspectives. For example, one of the things you do is learn to dialogue, and you even dialogue with your body. You dialogue with people. You dialogue with works that have happened in your life or that are still happening. And so you have the opportunity. We do just a bit of this in this particular workshop just to give a taste of it. But you can take, once I teach you the process, you can do a whole stream of exercises to really get in touch with what needs to be cleaned up from the past and what still wants to happen. And it is profound. I actually do a workshop once a month with a group of people who are ongoingly doing this work. They took the workshop and now they continue with it. And the insights are just kind of blowing them away. I watch everybody just go, oh my God, I had no idea. We actually talk to our own spirit guides in the journaling. I have conversations with Teresa of Avila or Ernest Holmes. I had a conversation with Ernest Holmes last week, and it's amazing the things that show up and can happen as a result. So a life review is not about, check off what did I do right, what did I do wrong. It's about saying, my life is speaking to me. And what has happened was not an accident. And what has happened wants to inform what still wants to happen.
Mm.
So it's, Ira Progoff is the creator of the intensive journal process. And his famous phrase was, what does my life wish to become? And when you ask your life that, it responds. And
Powerful.
in there are techniques to do that. And they're not just take a pen and start writing. There are lots of different ways that we ask those questions. We go into imagery, we do all kinds of techniques with it. It's very, very powerful. It's one of my favorite things to do. So when we finish this class, I call it conversations with yourself.
Mm. It is that it's powerful, just powerful. And you look at things different. That's one of the things I've loved about you. Your perspective on even the simplest of things that I've heard many times before is different. You just look at things differently than a lot of people do. And you beat to your own, you march to your own drummer. And I love that. And that gives other people the okay to do it themselves. So I love that about you. It's been a gift in my life, in the classes that I've taken, and our conversations since. And you actually ask those questions that really can shock you into, okay, I need to think about this. And you did that for me. And it was actually a year ago. I was taking a class with you. I want to say it was last December or January, not this past one, but the last one. And you asked me, so that's great. You're doing all of this for spirit. What would you love? And it was a simple question. And I'm like, well, it's not that and you're like, no, I'm not asking any of that. What would you love? What do you want? And the way that you said it at the time that you said it really made me think and stop and say, okay, what would I love? And within a week, I had a conversation with Reverend Robert, and I was on this network, and I've been here ever since. So when you stop and ask the right question and you really spend time listening to that, that wasn't even a life review. That was simply just asking myself the question of, what am I running away from? What am I supposed to be running towards? And why is it that I think I can't? It was one of those things that really just hit me perfectly. And you have a knack for that. So I really encourage, we've been talking about, if anyone's just jumping on, it's, Reverend Dr. Toni LaMotta is our guest today. And she has this beautiful class that's going to be starting next week. It's Conscious Aging Connection. And it's an 8-week class that you teach based off of your book, which is Embracing the Aging Process. And that's what we're talking about and asking questions about. So I'd definitely want to hear a little bit more. Is there an exercise or something that they can do with that life review now? This is the website, by the way, that you can either, right on this landing page, you would be able to register for the class, but also it would give you the opportunity. You can ask questions, you can send her an email, whatever you need.
Yeah, and they could also sign up for my ongoing emails so they'll find out what's going on in the future as well. Yeah, you asked if there's something they can do right now. I'm going to give you an exercise that people can take home and do today if you wish. And that is, think about your life and think about the 10 to 12 events that brought you to who you are today. And you can be 80 years old or 20 years old. You only get 10 or 12. All right. And I call them markings. I don't know if you remember Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the head of the UN, but he wrote a book called Markings. And those words always stuck to me. Ira Progoff calls them stepping stones. And just trying to list the things that have been the most significant experiences of your life. And everybody gets the first one, I was born, right? And you can put the date. And then it's amazing when we do this in class how many people discover what they leave out and they thought was so incredibly important, or what becomes significant and you had no idea was that significant. And when you first do the exercise, you just write them down in any old order and then you can put them in order later on. But just think about the 10 or 12 major events that have transformed your life. When we do this in a later workshop, I have people actually do the 10 or 12 spiritual markings. What have been the experiences of opening to spirit in our life that have happened? The 10 or 12, once again, they happen every day, but what are the significant ones? And those 10 or 12 things are the basis for the entire life review, because then you can take any one of them and flesh it out. And so if you discover one of them was something that happened when you were 12, you might want to go back to that and take a look at who were the people that were involved. What are the things that you were doing? What were the significant beliefs during that time? What were the activities that you were doing? Because they probably have a message for you today if it's showing up. I'm probably saying more than I need to at this point, but that one exercise, just listing the events, people find it mind-blowing because sometimes they leave out their children. I forgot to say I had children, or sometimes they'll leave out a marriage or leave out something. I mean, and it's as telling to find, and there's no right or wrong, by the way. So it's as telling to see what you choose as what you don't choose. And when you limit yourself to only 10 or 12, that's pretty limiting, especially for those of us who are getting on in years. Interesting. So,
But again, powerful. It's really looking at, sometimes I think that we're a society of doers instead of, we're human beings. And we spend so much time doing that we lose sight of the being. And I never realized that. It took, for me, unfortunately, it took cancer for me to get to the point of being able to stop. And that was only because I physically had to. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't walk. That's what it took for me to realize that the world spun on its axis without me, and that everyone was just fine. And I don't mean it it doesn't mean I'm not important in people's lives. It wasn't anything negative, but the awareness that how much had I taken on unconsciously, thinking I had to.
well,
Because
sometimes though, even looking at the work that you do and the doing can really tell you, like, there was one time when I did this workshop. I've done the intensive journal work over and over again. And one time I did it, I found out why I chose certain works in my life. It showed me what some of my values were, what some of the most important things to me. So it's not just about being, it is about the doing, because what do we choose to do tells us something about ourselves as well. So it's interesting. I mentioned that there are four different pieces to this workshop and to the book. And so we talked a little bit about myths, lies, and truth. That's the first part. The second one is the life review. And the third part is what you're referring to right now, and is some of the spiritual lessons that life teaches us and that aging teaches us. And I had a lesson very similar to what you were just describing. And I'd love to share it because this has been one of the most profound teachings of my life. And I had a hip replacement. And after the hip replacement, the very next day, the nurse literally grabbed me out of bed and I heard a crack and I knew something was wrong. I was in the most excruciating pain I have ever been in my life. And we later found out they took 3 days before they tested what was wrong. I was lying in pain in the hospital bed. And then we found out that my femur had broken. And so the femur is the largest bone in the human body. So I literally could not move and could not leave my bed for almost 3 months. And it was a real challenging time. My friends who knew I was a minister said, "Oh, she's probably having this wonderful spiritual experience." I have to tell you, I watched sitcoms most of the time during that time because I couldn't go anywhere else. The pain was so great. I couldn't do anything that looked spiritual. But towards the end of the time, when I discovered I was going to be able to walk again, then that took quite a bit. And when I was able to get up and walk, I finally said, okay, it's time to find out what is this message. And I heard a voice. And it sounds a little funny when you say that, but I heard a voice, and that's how I get my messages. It said, "There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do." And I laughed. Well, yeah, when you're lying flat on your back, there is nowhere to go there. And it said, "No, no, no. I mean that about every day." And I wake up every morning now thinking of those words. This is 5 years ago. And I still think of those words. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to do. Do you know how freeing that message has been in my life? It's like when I think I have all this stuff to do, or where I think I have to, if I don't meditate today, what's going to happen? I remember reading somewhere that said, stop meditating if you think that that's what's going to make you holy. I mean, it's like there is nowhere to go. There is nothing you have to do. You're completely loved and accepted exactly as you are. And that has been probably, and you know what? When you're getting older, and you can't do as much as you used to do, and your energy level isn't there. And what a refreshing thought. There is nowhere to go. There's nothing I have to do. And every time I catch myself thinking, I got to do this, I remember those words, and it has changed my life, completely changed my life. It has become total accepting what is. And I think if there's one message in the spiritual life that is the most important, and as every religious teaching teaches it, it's accepting what is. I went to India, spent 21 days in a retreat there, and the message there was enlightenment is simply allowing what is. That's enlightenment. Can you imagine? It's not about having mystical experiences and feeling wonderful and doing all these things. It's simply when you're angry, be angry. When you're hungry, go eat. That's enlightenment. Powerful stuff. And that doesn't happen until you're older, because the goal of our younger years is to achieve. We need to. We need to be doing those things. The goal is to accumulate. And then the goal of aging is to let it all go and get ready to really let it all go. So, to me, the most powerful lesson that aging has taught is there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do.
Mm.
Amazing. Amazing.
Freeing. It really is freeing. Imagine that the really feeling, and sometimes we've experienced it on a vacation, or we experience it in moments, but that awareness that everything in life is a choice. Everything in life. We're breathing. We get to. Everything else is a choice. What I think about, what I do, who I do it with, all of that is all a choice. There's a series of choices. And we often forget the freedom that goes along with that. And one of the things that, because there are a lot of misconceptions, and there are a lot of people that when they think of the word aging, or when they think of, it's not necessarily a positive thing. I have an uncle who transitions, actually, he just transitioned a year ago, and he was 95 when he transitioned. And until he was 94 and a half, basically, it was until COVID. He was still going to casinos. He married someone 30 years younger than him. He was having a grand time for his life every day of his life. And the gift of it was he knew it. Every day of his life, he knew he was blessed. He knew he had been given opportunity. He appreciated it. He shared with everyone. Whoever he went out to eat with, he paid for everybody. It didn't matter. All of my life, I've never seen anyone else grab the tab other than this man. And it wasn't in a way of showing off in any way, but he had something and he could share it. And he felt good doing that. And it's funny because since he's transitioned, I've probably thought of him more in the sense of the beauty of his life, like how vibrant he lived every day of his life. And when he couldn't, he transitioned. Like he went downhill fast. As soon as he couldn't with COVID go out and do anything, as soon as shutdown happened, he was, downhill fast. He's like, all right, I'm checking out now, is what it seemed like. So it was, we get a choice. That's who I see. When I think of aging, that's what I see. That's what I choose, to know that I am blessed and share those blessings. And not in a monetary way, in the sense of he drove an old car. He never cared about stuff like that. But he shared everything he had.
So he sounds wonderful, but I want to challenge you again. It's not even about choice, because choice makes us think we have to do something. You don't even have to choose. Allowing life to happen. Sometimes we don't choose what's going on. I don't believe you chose to have illness, or you
No,
chose, or anybody else.
that was an unconscious.
So just as much you don't choose, I know a lot of people right now who are living in deep depression, and living that fully is enlightenment. This is what I'm trying to get to.
Oh,
Well, that sounds very strange, but
it
it's true.
does.
You know how I think differently. And it's about not wishing it could be different, or saying I can choose to be happy today. I can choose, I'm going to use your time, choose joy. Sometimes you can't, and you shouldn't. I'm watching a person who was married to a man who she knew wasn't married this long, but 67 years. And he made his transition this past year. And she calls me every now and then saying, I don't really know if I want to live. And I said, that's okay. I'm not trying to talk her into feeling good. I'm allowing her, because she's thanked me so much for allowing her to be where she is. She's not always depressed, but there are days that are very challenging. And to me, that's what the spirituality of aging has taught me. It's about letting the both and letting yourself be miserable when you're miserable, and letting yourself be joyful when you're joyful, not trying to choose to be different. And I hear what you're saying, because I do think we do have choice in life. I'm not saying that there's no choice in life, but I think that sometimes even thinking that I have to choose something different becomes work that I should be doing something that I'm not, rather than what's happening is exactly what needs to happen. I had a meeting this morning, and I got some information that I wasn't happy with. It was not like what I really wanted to hear. And it was trivial. It was not a huge thing, but I walked away from it and saying, bum, I can feel bum right now. It didn't last more than 10 minutes. I mean, I went on to do something else and it was fine. But at the moment, it was like, okay, this is what is happening right now. Do I want to fight it or do I just allow it to be? And to me, when I allow something to be, even when I'm in pain, and there are days that I'm in pain, if I allow it to be, it goes away. When I try to make it better and like figuring out what to do and how to get well and what to fix, I'm fixing myself again. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. This is so profound. That message gets deeper and deeper in me. And I'll be sharing it again in class because I share it all the time. It's probably like the most profound message I've ever received in life. And it's hitting me more deeply every day as I get like, I don't have to be any different from how I am at the moment. Wow. Wow. When I'm tired, go to sleep. When it's just so, it sounds so trivial and so simple. But I learned some of this from a woman. I used to be a hospice volunteer. And one of the women that I visited every week was 104 years old. She died at 106, by the way. But I asked her one day what her secret was. And she said, I decided that I could be fighting everything and like not liking where I was living, what I was eating, or I could just decide to be satisfied with what is. And I chose to be satisfied with just what is. And boy, I've I've never forgotten that because what what a message. Like whatever is. If we could only get that, I guess that's the title of my next book. Whatever is. And people who know me really well, when they call me for advice, and they all laugh and they say, "I know whatever is, Toni." Like, yeah, that's my answer to everything. It's like, why am I fighting? Whatever, the Course in Miracles says, what we resist persists.
Yes.
And when we resist, when we think we should be doing or feeling something different than we are, like there's something wrong with my feelings. No, there's nothing wrong with your. I'll never forget it in India when they said, an enlightened person gets angry more often than others. And I went, whoa, that's interesting. And they said, because they allow themselves to feel anger and they don't resist it. So they don't hold on to it. It doesn't go into their body. That doesn't happen. They just get angry and then they move on. And I thought, I like this way of enlightenment. It's quite interesting, you know.
I spent most of my life in levels of denial. And there's some of it is society, some it's what you're taught, some it's that false cheerfulness that was expected. There were so many layers of it. And I spent a lot of years not even realizing that I was. We talk about spiritual bypass and we talk about being present with where you are and being aware of. And, for me, I think of grief when you were talking about that. And, when I think of grief, I look at it as a wave, and like literally a wave in the ocean, that if I try to stand up to a wave in the ocean, I'm going under. The undertow is taking me because that ocean is so much bigger than I am. But if I go with the flow and just kind of jump up a little, going with the wave and allow that wave to go where it needs to go, I step right down where I am. I'm not fighting the wave. I'm not pretending the wave isn't there. I'm just going with the flow. The wave goes away and I'm fine.
It's actually fun when you let yourself ride it.
Yes, yes.
I had a lawyer once tell me when I first started a business many years ago, and I'm like, oh, Joe, I have so many days that are going down. He said, think of it on a roller coaster. That's the best part of the ride is when you're going down. And it changed my whole thinking. So I'm a former Roman Catholic nun, and the our foundress had some very powerful sayings. And one of the sayings was, "The best growing days are the days when the sun doesn't shine."
Mm.
Think about that. It's very interesting. So, what we fight against what looks negative to the world. We need to reinterpret these myths that the world gives us about what's the right way to be, and even religion has given us that, and including, unfortunately, science of mind at times, less so, but at times we've gotten this message of change your thinking, change your life. It's like you shouldn't be thinking that at this moment. And yeah, but wait a minute, but I am. What do I do with that? And so when I allow myself to just be, it's amazing. I can't say I'm living it 24/7, but boy, is it different. Different than it ever was. And what I find is I go through things so much faster than I ever did before. I go through anger faster. I go through joy faster. I go through, any kind of pain faster. It's just amazing because I'm allowing it to be and just letting it go, and letting it be. Amazing. I
And
didn't
so
expect to say a lot of this stuff today, but you're bringing a lot more out of me.
it's that's what life is all about. It's about really being where we are and knowing where we are, because a lot of us, we don't even know, like, we're just going through the motions. As a life coach, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with that they walk in with the attitude of same crap, different day. And when I hear that, I'm like, oh, like I cringe. Like it's like a swear to me, because it's like, then you're doing it wrong. If that's what it feels like, you're doing it wrong. So you're in the right place because you're tired of being tired. So now what? And that's the answer. Is now what? The answer is, is this another thing I would hear often is, I've done all of these things in my life, and many of them were very successful people in their field, and they had the family and they had the this and they had all the stuff, but they were miserable. And they're like,
What
did
if
I
they
go through?
weren't doing it wrong, Gina? What if they weren't doing it
Well,
wrong? What
it's not about doing right or wrong. It's simply, I don't mean it in it's not about, then you can choose again. You don't have to stay there. They're like, is this all there is? No. The answer is no. There's always more. And it's not more out there necessarily, but we have to give ourselves the approval, the willingness, the acceptance, the permission to live differently. You know? Now, one of the things that you talk about sometimes, and when we think about, honestly, when we think of aging, one of the things that scares people often is the topic of, heaven forbid, death. And we're lucky, and I believe in new thought. That's one of the things that I think is wonderful, that we approach it, transition, very differently than the concept of death that I was raised with.
it's something that I think is is like, let's get ready for it. The Buddhists have the right idea. They spend every day getting ready for death. I mean, that's part of the teaching of Buddhism is really prepare for your death. So I face that head on and say, you know, what would you like people to be saying about you? What do you want on your epitaph? We write our epitaphs sometimes. If you had to say it in a phrase, what would that phrase be? And I remember once writing my own memorial service, and the words that I began with were, "We are gathered here today because we felt loved in her presence."
Mm.
And I thought, whoa, I really want people to say that about me and so if I want people to say that about me, how am I living that right now? Because they're not going
Yes.
to say it unless I'm doing that. And so I look at that. I mean, one of the things that I was doing for the last couple of months is I've been doing some tutoring online. And sometimes it's really challenging because these students are like, they fight against what you're trying to help them with sometimes, and many of them can't even write a sentence. It's amazing what our schools aren't teaching them. And I have to stop every single time and saying, how can I let this person feel loved in my presence? I literally make it a conscious effort. And I mean, I was working with somebody just yesterday, in fact, who said, I hate writing, I hate reading, I've never been good at it. Her writing was exceptionally good. And so I was able to say, where did you come to that? And she explained that she had an experience of a teacher who told her that she couldn't write and that made her a laughing stock in front of them. So I said, well, now you're going to have another experience of a teacher who happens to be a best-selling author who's going to tell you your writing is exceptionally good. Well, the whole situation, the whole session turned around, and she actually wrote up a report for me at the end that I didn't know. I found out later that she wrote this glowing report. Toni not only helped me with my essay, she helped me with my self-esteem. And I thought, that's it. That's what I want to be known for. Did people feel loved in my presence? Now, I don't always do it by telling them how wonderful they are. Look what I did to you, Gina. And,
You
but
call me on my stuff all the time.
But it's I hopefully, and I think you do, or you wouldn't even have me here right now, because you know that I'm loving you, and
Well, you
I'm
can see the
loving
hearts
you.
behind you. So clearly, you know that there's love there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and that's what I find. I remember my one of my professors used to call me the empathic provocateur. And I love those words. And it's like, I know how to get in there and help somebody make a change and see what's happening, but at the same time, do it with great, great love. And I think that's what we're doing when we face the idea of death too, is like face it head on instead of pussyfooting around it and not wondering about. I don't know what happens. None of us do. We don't know what life is after. So the way that I prepare for death, I know I just read another biography of Ernest Holmes, and I know he didn't believe in reincarnation, and I happen to believe in it. But he said, why are we worried about any of that? Let's live today. Let's prepare our life. And so when I look at death, it's like, let's not worry about death, but how do I want to be living my life? I've been studying with a man, his name is Terry Patton, who just made his transition. He runs a major spiritual organization that I'm part of. And it was beautiful. That man, 2 days before he made his transition, from his hospital bed with tubes in his nose, gave the most incredible teaching to this whole organization, talking about being with death and being in the process of transition. I learned more about death by being with him than I think that I've ever heard before, because he lived fully. And when he went home from hospice, he asked everybody to please dance around his bed because he missed dancing. So it was just an amazing experience of seeing that. But to me, it's really about, how do I want to be living? And what do I want said? And in one of my classes, I actually have people write their own eulogy. What do you
Practitioner
want?
studies. For practitioner one, you actually have to write we wrote our own eulogy, and you talk about the way the universe works. It was the week that I was diagnosed with over a dozen tumors in my kidneys. That was the week that I had to write and read my own eulogy.
Wow.
So it was interesting timing, and sometimes it works that way for a variety of reasons. And that's part of trusting it. It was a powerful exercise when we think about, who am I really, and what do I choose to be, what is important to me? When all is said and done, what is really important? And that's the best way we can live our life, is present in, what do I choose? And I encourage people, if there is any kind of fear of death, talk about it. Find people and talk about it, because until anything in my life, it can own me until I put it out into the light. And the light always dissipates the seeming darkness. So really, I think for me, that's one of the things. Talk about it. And I'm in no hurry. I've got a lot to do on this plane, and I'm not afraid of any of it. So it's really coming to terms with it on a personal level without fear, letting go of the stigma, the anything, and talking about it, just like anything in life. And we're running low on time. And I want to make sure people know how to get a hold of you and what to do as far as to register. I'm going to put up the banner for the class. And again, it's Dr. Toni LaMotta. It's Conscious Aging Connection. I strongly encourage you. It's going to be amazing. I have no doubt. And as a student of many classes, I encourage you. It's like nothing else. She teaches in a way that really, it's more than touching on a subject. It's more than physically learning in a moment. It's giving you those constant aha moments so that we allow ourselves, when we're in the right place at the right time, things change because we change. And, I really encourage people, if you've had any fear or doubts or questions around how do I do this consciously? How do I do it in a wonderful way? This would be a wonderful place for it.
Thank
Any
you. Mhm.
any final words on that?
Nope, just follow your heart. And I think I always tell people that you'll know if you're meant to be part of a program like this, if something's tugging at you and saying yes. And if not now, just sign up for the mailing list so that you'll know when we're doing this or things like the conversations class for the future. So just follow your heart. There are no shoulds. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. But if it's right for you, I hope you'll join us.
And it's on Wednesday evenings. I just want to make sure people know that it is on Wednesday evenings, because sometimes that's one of the questions people
Mhm.
will ask because they're not quite sure.
Yeah,
So,
it's from 7 to 9 Eastern time.
okay. So, thank you for being here. You know that I do love you, and I appreciate, the honesty, and, you live your life authentically. And
Thank you.
I respect that so much. There are a lot of people that walk through life with that persona, or who they put out to the world. And you walk your talk, and you are a gift in my life. So thank you for being here. And I encourage each person to live that authentic life. Part of being and appreciating ourselves is figuring out who we are, and then allowing ourselves to be it unapologetically in exciting ways.
Dragonfly, let your color shine.
Yes, be that dragonfly. Allow yourself to transform into the highest and best version of you, because the world needs it now. So I thank you all for being here on this beautiful network that gives us the opportunity to have conversations like this. Know that you can go to ntmedia.org to donate, and that's how we are here. This platform is here because of people just like you. So I thank you for being here with us. And we have prayer every morning and every evening, 8:15 a.m. and p.m. Mountain Time, 10:15 a.m. and p.m. on the West Coast, on the East Coast where I am. So just be part of this network. Come and visit us more often, and go back and look at some of the old shows. Celebrate life today. And I wish you joy in your journey. Blessings and love to each of you. Thank you, Reverend Toni.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a blessed day, everyone.